Hello, my dear friends, and welcome once again to Tales by Larinzy. This is the home of powerful stories. Stories that teach, warn, inspire, thrill, and guide us in the journey of life. If you're new here, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me and helps these stories reach even more people. They say love can make you blind, but jealousy makes you cruel. Adaeze Okonkwo had everything a woman could pray for: a powerful husband, beautiful children, wealth, respect, a life many envied from afar. But beneath the fine clothes and charity galas lived a quiet hunger to be seen, to be desired, to be chosen. One lie led to another. One secret opened the door to manipulation, and one decision poisoned an entire family. This is a story about envy, silence, emotional neglect, and how easily the wrong voice can sound like truth when your heart is already broken. Listen carefully, because the monster in this story did not come from outside the home. Chidi was caught before reaching the exit. In his pocket, multiple phones, fake IDs under different names, and documents linking him to fraud schemes across West Africa. Ifeanyi Madu, the lead detective said, scrolling through his criminal database. Also known as Chidi Nwosu, Emmanuel Okafor, David Adeleke, wanted in Ghana, Kenya, and 3 Nigerian states for fraud and extortion. But there was no mention of murder. No mention of Chief Emeka Okonkwo. Just fraud. Attempted fraud, to be specific, since the bank manager had stopped the transfer. Adaeze woke 3 days later in Lagos University Teaching Hospital, the same hospital where her husband had died 6 months earlier. Her children were there, Kamsi, Obi, and Adana, but their faces were stone. "Mummy," Kamsi said, her voice cold, "what were you doing at that bank?" I was conducting business." "You were trying to transfer 1.8 billion naira to a fraudster," Obi cut in, his jaw tight. "The police told us everything. 6 months after Dad died, 6 months after we buried him, and you're trying to give away our inheritance to some criminal you've been sleeping with." The words hit like physical blows. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Adana, the youngest, was crying. "Dad worked his entire life to build that company, to secure our future, and you sold everything, the company, the houses, everything. And for what? For a man you barely know. How could you? You don't understand." "You're right. We don't understand." Kamsi stood, gathering her things. "Uncle Obina has filed a petition with the court. He's arguing that you're mentally unfit to manage Dad's estate, that you've been making irrational decisions, destroying family assets. The court has frozen all accounts pending psychiatric evaluation." "What? You can't do that." "We already did. The 1.8 billion naira is now in a trust controlled by Uncle Obina until the court decides if you're competent." Kamsi's eyes were hard. "We're going back to England, Mummy. Don't contact us. Don't call. We need time to process what you've done." "But I'm your mother." "Our mother died when our father did," Obi said quietly. "We don't know who you are anymore." They left, and Adaeze was alone. 2 weeks later, the first letter arrived from Kirikiri prison. "My dearest Ada, I hope you've recovered from your injury. I've been so worried about you. The police have charged me with attempted fraud. They're talking about 15 years in prison. Can you believe it? After everything we've been to each other, I need your help, my love. I need you to tell them it was a misunderstanding, that you were willingly transferring money to me as an investment. With your testimony, they'll have to reduce the charges, maybe even drop them. I'm sure you'll do the right thing. After all, we both know what really happened to your husband, don't we? It would be tragic if that information somehow reached the authorities. All my love, Chidi. The letter shook in Adaeze's hands. Blackmail. He was blackmailing her. She burned the letter and tried to ignore it. But 3 days later, another letter arrived, then another, each one more explicit than the last. The bottle from Baba Agba. I kept it, you know. The one with your fingerprints all over it. And the recordings of our conversations where you talked about wanting Chief Emeka gone. I've placed them with a lawyer. If anything happens to me, if I'm convicted, they go straight to the police. Get me out, Ada. Testify that the transfer was legitimate. Pay my lawyer. Make this go away, or your children will learn what kind of mother they really have. Or should I say, what kind of murderer? Adaeze stared at the letter, hands trembling. She was trapped. If she helped Chidi, she'd be complicit in fraud, possibly lose what little remained of her children's respect. If she didn't help him, he'd expose her role in Chief Emeka's death. She tried to hire a lawyer to visit Chidi, to negotiate, but before she could arrange it, the nightmares began. Adaeze woke at 3 a.m. to find Chief Emeka standing at the foot of her bed. He looked exactly as he had the night he died, gray-faced, sweating, clutching his chest. His eyes were sad, disappointed. "Emeka," she whispered. He said nothing, just stared at her with those sad eyes. Then he faded like smoke. Adaeze told herself it was guilt, stress, her mind playing tricks. But the next night he was back, standing in the corner of her bedroom, watching her. And the next night, and the next. She stopped sleeping, started drinking to numb the fear. But alcohol made it worse. Chief Emeka appeared even when she was awake, standing in doorways, reflected in mirrors, sitting in his favorite chair in the study. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room. "Emeka, I'm so sorry. I was foolish. I was manipulated. Please, please forgive me." But the apparitions continued. Sometimes he was alone. Sometimes he was holding their wedding photo, the one from 20 years ago when they'd both been young and in love. Sometimes he just stood there, bleeding from his mouth and nose, symptoms of the poisoning she'd caused. Adaeze consulted a pastor. "Your husband's spirit is restless," he told her after praying over her. "There's something unresolved, something that needs to be confessed, made right. But I can't if I confess. Then you'll be tormented until you die," the pastor said bluntly. "The dead don't rest until justice is served, and neither will you." She tried visiting another Babalawo, desperate for spiritual relief. He took one look at her and refused. "You carry the stain of innocent blood," he said, backing away from her. "I cannot help you. No one can help you except the truth." The hauntings intensified. Chief Emeka appeared multiple times a day now, in the shower. While she was eating, while she was driving, she nearly caused an accident when he materialized in her passenger seat, and he started speaking. "Why, Ada?" His voice was a whisper, filled with pain. "Why did you do it? I loved you. I was faithful. I was planning to renew our vows." "I didn't know," she screamed at the empty room. "They lied to me. They said you were cheating, that you were going to leave me. And you believed them without asking me, without giving me a chance to defend myself. 20 years of marriage, and you had so little faith in me." She collapsed on the floor, sobbing. Because he was right, she should have confronted him, should have asked directly instead of believing in Kiru's lies, instead of falling for Chidi's manipulation. "I was lonely," she whispered. "I felt invisible. You worked all the time. You forgot our anniversary." "So you murdered me?" Chief Emeka's spirit stood over her now, and for the first time there was anger in his voice. I forgot an anniversary, so I deserved to die. I worked hard to provide for our family, and that justified poisoning me for 7 nights. Watching me suffer. Ada, what happened to you? I don't know, she sobbed. I don't know anymore. I was drugged. I was manipulated. You were jealous. You were selfish. You were willing to believe the worst about me because it justified what you wanted to do anyway. His voice softened. I'm not saying I was a perfect husband. I wasn't. I neglected you. I took you for granted. But I didn't deserve death, Ada, and our children didn't deserve to lose their father. I know. What do I do? How do I make this right? You know what you have to do. And then he was gone. The next morning, Adaeze went to the police station in Victoria Island. She'd barely slept in 2 weeks. Her hands shook constantly. She'd lost 15 pounds. She looked like a ghost herself. I need to report a crime, she told the detective at the desk. A murder. When did this occur? 6 months ago, April 14th. The victim was Chief Adaeze Okonkwo. She took a deep breath. And I'm the one who killed him. The detective's eyes widened. Ma'am, are you sure you want to? Perhaps you should speak with a lawyer first. I'm sure. I need to confess. I need to tell someone what I did. They put her in an interrogation room. She told them everything. About Nkiru's lies, about meeting Chidi, about the affair, about Baba Agba and the poison, about the 7 nights of putting drops in her husband's cognac, about watching him die. Why are you confessing now? The detective asked. Ifeanyi Madu has been blackmailing you, correct? You could have kept silent. Because my husband won't let me rest, Adaeze said simply. Because I can't live with this anymore. Because my children deserve to know the truth, even if they hate me for it. Because Chief Emeka was a good man, and he deserves justice. The detective studied her for a long moment. You understand that you're confessing to premeditated murder, that you'll face significant prison time. I understand. I deserve it. They arrested her that day. The news exploded across Lagos. Mrs. Adaeze Okonkwo, respected philanthropist, had murdered her husband. Society was shocked. How could this happen? What had driven her to such madness? The investigation moved quickly. Baba Agba was arrested at his shrine in Badagry. Faced with charges, he confessed everything, provided the poison recipe, explained his partnership with Ifeanyi Madu. Nkiru, consumed by guilt and fear, turned herself in before police came for her. She provided detailed testimony about introducing Adaeze to Ifeanyi, lying about the affair, accepting money for her cooperation. I never meant for Chief Emeka to die, she sobbed during her interrogation. I just wanted to hurt Adaeze, to bring her down. I was jealous. I was bitter. But I never wanted murder. The trial was a media sensation. Every newspaper, every blog, every social media platform discussed the case. Some portrayed Adaeze as a victim of manipulation. Others saw her as a cold-blooded killer. Her children returned from England for the trial. They sat in the gallery, stony-faced, as their mother testified about killing their father. I loved your father, Adaeze said, looking directly at Kamsi, Obi, and Adana. But I allowed jealousy and manipulation to poison my heart long before I ever put poison in his drinks. I wanted to feel valued, desired, special. And when Chidi offered me that feeling, I chose it over my marriage, over my family, over everything your father built. She explained the drugs, the juju, the systematic manipulation. But she never tried to excuse what she'd done. Yes, I was manipulated. Yes, I was influenced by dark forces. But I still made choices. I chose to have an affair. I chose to believe lies about your father without confronting him. I chose to visit Baba Agba. I chose to take that bottle, and I chose 7 nights in a row to put poison in your father's drinks." Her voice broke. "I watched him suffer. I watched him die, and I felt nothing. That's who I became. That's the monster I allowed myself to become." The psychiatric experts testified about coercive control, about how systematic manipulation could break down even strong individuals, about the effects of drugs and spiritual manipulation. But the prosecution was relentless. She had multiple opportunities to stop. After the first night of poisoning, she could have stopped. After the second, the third, after her husband started showing symptoms, she could have called a doctor, confessed, gotten him treatment. Instead, she watched him deteriorate and continued poisoning him. In the end, Adaeze pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter with diminished capacity. The judge took into account the manipulation, the drugs, the spiritual abuse, but also the fact that she'd made deliberate choices over multiple days. This court recognizes that Mrs. Okonkwo was subjected to extraordinary manipulation, the judge said. However, this was not a crime of passion, committed in a moment of madness. This was a sustained, deliberate act carried out over 7 days. The defendant had multiple opportunities to stop, to seek help, to save her husband's life. She chose not to. Sentence: 15 years in Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison, eligible for parole after 10. Ifeanyi Maidu received 25 years for fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and extortion. Baba Agba received 20 years for manufacturing poison and conspiracy. Nkiru received 7 years for fraud and conspiracy. The 1.8 billion naira remained in trust for Adaze's children, now managed by their uncle Obina. Kirikiri prison was hell, but Adaeze accepted it as her penance. The first year was the hardest. Her cellmates were hardened criminals who had no sympathy for a rich woman who'd murdered her husband. She was beaten twice, her belongings stolen regularly, but slowly she found her place. She taught literacy classes to inmates who couldn't read. She mentored younger women, warning them about manipulation, about recognizing red flags in relationships, about the importance of communication in marriage. And the hauntings stopped. The night after her sentencing, Chief Emeka appeared one final time in her cell. "Thank you," he said softly, "for telling the truth, for giving me justice." "I'm so sorry," she whispered, "for everything. I wish I could take it back." "I know, but you can't. All you can do now is try to prevent other women from making your mistakes." He started to fade. "Take care of our children, Ada. Even from here. They need their mother, even if they don't know it yet. They hate me. Today, yes. But one day, maybe they'll understand. Maybe they'll forgive." He smiled sadly. "I forgive you. It took me time, but I do. Now you need to forgive yourself." Then he was gone, and Adaeze knew he was finally at rest. Her children didn't visit for the first 3 years. It was Adana who finally broke the silence, showing up on a Saturday afternoon when Adaeze was almost ready to give up hope of ever seeing them again. "I'm not here to say I forgive you," Adana said, sitting across from her mother in the visiting room. "I'm not ready for that, but I'm studying psychology now, and I've been learning about coercive control, about manipulation, about how abusers break down their victims. And I think I understand a little better what happened to you." "It doesn't excuse what I did," Adaeze said automatically. She'd said this so many times it was like a prayer. "No, but it helps explain it. And Mummy, I've realized something else. You weren't entirely wrong about Dad." Adaeze's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "He wasn't having an affair. That was a lie. But he did neglect you. He did take you for granted. I remember how you'd dress up for his business dinners, trying to get his attention, and he'd barely notice. I remember you asking him to spend time with you, and he'd say, "Later, I'm busy." You deserved better than that. But not murder, never murder. But Mummy, I've been thinking about marriage, about what it means to choose someone every day. And I think Dad forgot to choose you. He forgot that marriage isn't just about providing financially. It's about presence, attention, intimacy. Adana wiped her eyes. What you did was unforgivable. But what led you to be vulnerable to manipulation? Dad played a role in that too. It was the first honest conversation they'd had in years. It wouldn't be the last. Slowly, painfully, Adaeze rebuilt relationships with her children. Kamsi came 6 months after Adana. Then Obi, the most resistant, finally visited 2 years later. "I'm never going to understand why you didn't just divorce him," Obi said bluntly. "If you were unhappy, if you felt neglected, that's what divorce is for, not murder." "You're right, absolutely right. If I could go back, that's what I would do. I would confront your father about my feelings. I would insist on marriage counseling. And if that didn't work, I would leave. But I would never, never take his life." "Do you think about him? About Dad?" "Every day. Every single day. I think about the life he could have lived, about walking you all down the aisle at your weddings, about grandchildren he'll never meet, about all the moments I stole from him, from you, from our family." Obi was quiet for a long time. Then, "Uncle Obina says Dad kept a journal. In it, he wrote about how much he loved you, how worried he was that you seemed distant, how he was planning that second honeymoon." Adaeze closed her eyes against the pain. "I know. Your uncle showed me. That's what I live with, Obi. The knowledge that your father loved me, was trying to fix our marriage, and I killed him anyway because I believed lies. How do you live with that? By accepting that I can't make it right, by accepting my punishment, by trying to help other women avoid my mistakes, and by hoping that one day you and your sisters might find it in your hearts to forgive me. Not forget I don't deserve that, but maybe, someday, forgive." Now, 5 years into her sentence, Adaeze had found a fragile peace. Her children visited monthly. The relationship was strained, would probably always be strained, but it existed. She'd written a book in prison, a memoir titled "The Poison of Envy: How I Destroyed My Life and Murdered My Husband." The proceeds went entirely to a foundation she'd established for victims of romance scams and coercive control. "Your mother's book has helped thousands of women recognize warning signs," Kamsi told her during a recent visit. She was engaged now, planning her wedding. "Women write to the foundation saying they saw themselves in your story. They got out of dangerous relationships because of what you shared." "That's something, at least," Adaeze said. "It doesn't bring your father back. It doesn't repair what I broke. But if even one woman is saved from making my mistakes, then maybe his death wasn't completely meaningless." 10 years. She had 5 more years until she was eligible for parole. 10 years before she might be free. But Adaeze had learned that freedom wasn't about prison walls. It was about truth, about facing what you'd done, about accepting consequences while still trying to do better. "I love you, Mummy," Adana said as visiting hours ended. 23 now, graduating from university, her whole life ahead of her. "I'm still angry. I still don't fully understand. But I love you. I love you too, baby girl. All of you. That's what makes this bearable. Knowing you're out there, living your lives, not letting my mistakes destroy your futures." That night, alone in her cell, Adaeze wrote in her journal, another habit she'd developed in prison. Dear Emeka, the children are well. Kamsi is getting married. Obi has been promoted at his shipping company. Yes, he went into shipping, following in your footsteps. Adana is finishing her psychology degree. They're good people, Emeka. Strong people. They survived losing you and having me as a mother. That's a testament to the foundation you gave them. I wish I could take it back. I wish I had confronted you about my loneliness instead of seeking validation elsewhere. I wish I had valued what we had instead of believing lies about what we didn't have. I wish I had been stronger, smarter, more faithful. But wishes change nothing. All I can do is accept what I've done, face the consequences, and try to prevent other women from destroying their lives the way I destroyed mine. I hope you're at peace. I hope you forgive me. And I hope somehow you're proud of the people our children have become, despite me, not because of me. Forever sorry, Ada. She closed the journal and lay back on her thin mattress. Outside, Lagos continued its chaotic dance. Parties in Lekki, business deals in Victoria Island, families sharing meals in Ikeja. Life went on. It always did. Even after tragedy, even after murder, even after everything was destroyed. And maybe, just maybe, that was the lesson. Life continues. And as long as you're alive, you have the choice to do better, to be better, to find some small way to create good from the ashes of terrible mistakes. Adaeze Okonkwo would never be redeemed. She'd murdered an innocent man, destroyed her family, wasted 20 years of marriage. That could never be undone. But she could tell her story. She could warn others. She could love her children from behind bars. She could serve her time with grace and try to emerge eventually as someone who'd learned from the worst mistake a person could make. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. And in Kirikiri prison, 5 years into a 15-year sentence, something was enough. Adaze's story does not end with forgiveness. It ends with consequence. A good man is dead. A family is forever scarred. And a woman lives every day with the weight of a choice she cannot undo. This story is not here to excuse her actions. Manipulation explains behavior, but it does not erase responsibility. Loneliness may weaken judgment, but it does not justify murder. If there is a lesson here, it is this. Talk before resentment turns into rage. Ask questions before believing whispers. And never let temporary validation cost you permanent loss. Because once envy poisons the heart, it rarely stops at one life. And by the time the truth arrives, it is often too late. If this story unsettled you, don't rush past that feeling. It was meant to sit with you. These are not just stories. They are mirrors. They are warnings. They are lessons paid for with blood, silence, and regret. Here on Tales by Larinzy, we tell African stories rooted in truth and consequence. Stories that remind us that evil does not always come dressed as darkness. Sometimes it comes wearing affection, patience, and sweet words. If you believe stories should challenge you, not just entertain you. If you enjoy tales that follow you into the quiet moments of your day, then you are exactly where you should be. Subscribe to Tales by Larinzy. Like this story if it stirred something in you. Share it with someone who believes choices matter. And tell me in the comments, if you were Adaeze, would you have chosen truth earlier? Or silence until it was too late? Until the next story is told, listen carefully. The lessons are always speaking.